The champagne flowed like a river, mirroring the cascading water features of my magnum opus, the Zenith. Years of relentless toil, countless sleepless nights, and a lifetime of dreams had culminated in this moment. My wife, Amelia, stood beside me, her hand resting lightly on my arm, a radiant smile gracing her lips. She was the muse, the unwavering support, the other half of my soul. To Elias, she declared, her voice echoing through the atrium, and to the Zenith, a testament to his genius and our love. The crowd erupted in applause, their cheers a symphony of admiration. I looked around at the awe-inspiring structure, a testament to human ingenuity, a self-sustaining ecosystem of glass and steel that would redefine the boundaries of architecture. Sunlight streamed through the expansive glass walls, illuminating the verdant gardens, the cascading waterfalls, and the intricate network of pathways that wound through the building's core. Amelia, ever the social butterfly, flitted through the crowd, her laughter mingling with the celebratory music. I watched her with a quiet pride, a sense of contentment washing over me. We had built this together, our lives intertwined with the very fabric of the Zenith. It was a monument to our love, a symbol of our shared dreams. Little did I know that beneath the surface of this seemingly perfect facade, a darkness was beginning to take root, a darkness that would threaten to consume us both. I've aimed to maintain the core elements of the original story while adhering to your specific requests. This first part focuses on the initial celebration and the underlying sense of contentment, hinting at the impending doom that awaits. I hope this revised version meets your expectations. The initial euphoria of the Zenith's grand opening gradually gave way to the humdrum of daily life. I immersed myself in the intricate workings of the building, fine-tuning its systems, ensuring its smooth operation. Amelia, as always, was a constant presence, her office adjacent to mine, our lives seamlessly interwoven. Yet, a subtle unease began to creep into my consciousness. It started with minor discrepancies, a flickering light in the hydroponics bay, an unexpected fluctuation in the water purification system, a brief interruption in the air circulation. These were mere glitches easily rectified, but their frequency was unsettling. Then there were the whispers. I'd catch snippets of hushed conversations, furtive glances exchanged between my colleagues, a sense of guardedness that hadn't been there before. When questioned, they'd offer vague explanations, attributing it to stress or overwork. But their eyes held a flicker of something else, something I couldn't quite decipher. Amelia, too, seemed different. There was a subtle shift in her demeanor, a preoccupation that I attributed to the pressures of managing her own burgeoning design firm within the Zenith. Yet, I couldn't shake off the feeling that she was holding something back, a secret weighing heavily on her heart. One evening, as we were leaving the office, I noticed her phone lying on her desk. The screen was illuminated with a message, the sender's name obscured, but the words, "The plan is proceeding," sent a shiver down my spine. Before I could read further, Amelia returned, snatching the phone with a startled gasp. "Everything all right?" I asked, my voice betraying a hint of suspicion. "Of course, darling," she replied, a touch too quickly. "Just a client message." I nodded, but the seed of doubt had been planted. The whispers, the glitches, Amelia's evasiveness, they all pointed to something amiss, a hidden current beneath the placid surface of our lives. The unease I had been feeling intensified when a major system malfunction occurred within the Zenith. The climate control system, the very heart of the building's self-sufficiency, suffered a critical failure. Temperatures within certain sections began to fluctuate wildly, jeopardizing the delicate balance of the internal ecosystem. Panic ensued. Teams of engineers scrambled to diagnose the problem, their faces etched with concern. I joined them, poring over schematics, analyzing data logs, desperately searching for the source of the malfunction. As I delved deeper into the system diagnostics, a chilling realization dawned on me. This was no mere glitch. The data logs showed evidence of deliberate tampering, a series of unauthorized access points and overwritten commands that could only have been executed with malicious intent. Someone had sabotaged the Zenith. But who and why? Suspicion gnawed at me, casting a shadow over everyone I knew within the building. Could it be a disgruntled employee seeking revenge for a perceived slight? Or perhaps a rival architect envious of my success? The investigation proceeded slowly, each passing hour fueling my anxiety. The zenith, my pride and joy, was now a vulnerable organism, its delicate equilibrium disrupted. The sense of betrayal was profound, a violation not just of my creation, but of the trust one had placed in those around me. Amelia, sensing my distress, tried to offer comfort, but her words felt hollow. The seed of doubt planted earlier had taken root, growing into a monstrous suspicion that I couldn't ignore. Her every action, every word, was now scrutinized, analyzed for any hint of deception. The malfunction was eventually rectified, but the damage was done. The zenith, once a symbol of perfection, now bore the scars of betrayal, and I was determined to find the culprit no matter the cost. The sabotage incident cast a long shadow over the zenith. The atmosphere, once vibrant and collaborative, became tainted with suspicion and mistrust. I found myself withdrawing, isolating myself in my work, obsessively reviewing security logs and access records, determined to uncover the saboteur. My focus inevitably turned to Amelia. The incident with her phone, her recent evasiveness, and a certain coldness in her eyes that I hadn't noticed before. All these fueled my growing suspicion. I began to observe her more closely, scrutinizing her interactions with colleagues, analyzing her every word and gesture. One evening, I found myself lingering in my office, long after everyone else had left. As I was about to leave, I noticed a light emanating from Amelia's office. Curiosity piqued. I approached cautiously, peering through the glass partition. Amelia was seated at her desk, her back to me, engaged in a hushed phone conversation. I couldn't make out the words, but her tone was urgent, conspiratorial. She spoke of delays, risks, and ensuring the outcome. My heart pounded in my chest. Who was she talking to? What outcome was she referring to? Suddenly, she turned, her eyes meeting mine through the glass. A look of shock and something akin to fear flashed across her face. She quickly ended the call and rose from her desk, her movements stiff and unnatural. I retreated to my office, my mind reeling. The conversation I had overheard, coupled with her reaction, confirmed my worst fears. Amelia was involved, but to what extent? Was she the saboteur? Or was she merely a pawn in a larger game? The questions tormented me, driving a wedge between us. The woman I loved, the woman I had built my life with, was now a stranger, shrouded in secrecy and deception. The shadow of suspicion had fallen upon her, and I couldn't escape its chilling embrace. Sleep became a luxury I could no longer afford. Haunted by suspicion and fueled by a desperate need for answers, I spent my nights poring over the Zenith's blueprints. Every conduit, every access panel, every sensor and control system was meticulously scrutinized, searching for any anomaly, any deviation from the original design that could betray the saboteur's hand. The Zenith was my creation, a complex organism I knew intimately. Yet, as I delved deeper into the schematics, I began to see it with new eyes, recognizing subtle alterations, hidden pathways, and unauthorized access points that had been cleverly concealed. It was as if the building itself had been turned against me, its intricate systems manipulated for a sinister purpose. I discovered a series of ventilation ducts that had been rerouted, leading to concealed chambers within the building's core. I found evidence of bypassed security sensors and overridden access codes, granting clandestine entry to restricted areas. And then there were the data logs, revealing a pattern of unauthorized access to critical systems, always occurring during off hours, always meticulously erased. The more I uncovered, the more convinced I became that this was no random act of sabotage. This was a carefully orchestrated plan, executed with precision and expertise. But who possessed the knowledge and the motive to carry out such a scheme? The answer, I feared, lay closer than I dared to imagine. Amelia, with her intimate knowledge of the Zenith and her access to its inner workings, was the prime suspect. Yet, The thought of her betrayal was almost unbearable, a crushing weight that threatened to shatter my world. Driven by a desperate hope, I began to search for evidence that would either exonerate her or confirm my worst fears. I installed hidden cameras in her office, monitored her phone calls, and tracked her movements within the building. Each new discovery, each intercepted conversation, pushed me further down the rabbit hole of suspicion, drawing me closer to a truth I wasn't sure I was ready to face. The Zenith, my architectural marvel, had become a labyrinth of secrets. Every corner I turned, every hidden passage I uncovered, revealed another layer of deception. The building, once a symbol of transparency and openness, now felt like a suffocating cage, its mirrored surfaces reflecting my own growing paranoia. My investigation led me deeper into the building's core, to a network of service tunnels and maintenance shafts that were never meant to be seen. Here, I found evidence of a hidden world, a clandestine operation running parallel to the building's official functions. I discovered surveillance systems concealed behind ventilation grills, their lenses capturing every movement within the public spaces. I found soundproof chambers, their walls lined with acoustic foam, where secret meetings were undoubtedly held. And I found data cables, snaking through the walls, carrying encrypted information to unknown destinations. The Zenith was no longer just a building. It was a panopticon, a surveillance state disguised as a utopian paradise. And I, its creator, was now its prisoner, trapped in a web of my own design. The evidence I gathered pointed to a conspiracy, a network of individuals working in concert to undermine the Zenith and, by extension, me. But who were they? And what was their ultimate goal? Amelia remained my primary suspect. Her knowledge of the building, her access to its systems, and her recent secretive behavior all pointed to her involvement. Yet, a part of me still clung to the hope that I was wrong, that there was another explanation, a less devastating truth. Driven by this conflicting desire for knowledge and fear of confirmation, I continued my investigation, delving deeper into the mirror maze, determined to uncover the faces behind the reflections, the puppeteers pulling the strings of this elaborate deception. The constant surveillance, the clandestine discoveries, the gnawing suspicion, it was all taking its toll. I was becoming a ghost in my own creation, haunting the corridors of the Zenith, a prisoner of my own obsession. I knew I couldn't continue like this. The uncertainty was eating me alive. I needed to force the saboteur's hand, to draw them out from the shadows, to expose their motives and their methods. And so I devised a plan, a dangerous game of deception, a high-stakes gamble with the Zenith as the playing field. I began by planting false leads, subtly altering data logs, introducing minor malfunctions that would appear as genuine errors but would, in fact, lead the saboteur down a carefully constructed path. I created decoy files, filled with fabricated information, and placed them in seemingly vulnerable locations, hoping to lure them into a trap. At the same time, I intensified my surveillance efforts, installing additional cameras, monitoring network traffic, and analyzing every keystroke and mouse click within the building. The Zenith became a digital battlefield, a silent war waged in the virtual realm. The tension was palpable. Each passing day brought new challenges, new discoveries, new anxieties. I was walking a tightrope, balancing my desire for truth with the fear of what I might find. Amelia remained a constant enigma. Her behavior was a confusing mix of concern and distance, affection and evasion. One moment she would be the loving wife, offering comfort and support. The next she would be withdrawn, her eyes filled with a guardedness that sent shivers down my spine. I knew the time was coming when I would have to confront her, to lay my cards on the table. But I wasn't ready yet. I needed more evidence, more certainty. I needed to be sure. The Zenith, once a haven of innovation and collaboration, had transformed into a battleground of paranoia and suspicion. My decoy strategy was yielding results, but at a cost. The atmosphere within the building was becoming increasingly tense, the lines between reality and deception blurring with each passing day. To amplify this disquiet, I began to manipulate the building's environment, subtly altering the lighting, the ambient sounds, even the temperature in certain areas. I created echo chambers, where whispers would be amplified, footsteps would reverberate, and shadows would dance in the periphery of vision. I wanted to unsettle the saboteur, to make them question their perceptions, to push them to the brink of paranoia. I wanted them to feel the weight of their own deception, to experience the isolation and fear that I had been enduring. The effects were subtle but noticeable. Conversations became hushed, movements more cautious, glances more furtive. A sense of unease permeated the building, a collective anxiety that mirrored my own internal turmoil. Amelia, too, seemed affected by the shifting atmosphere. Her usual vivacity was replaced by a quiet tension, her laughter less frequent, her smile less genuine. I watched her closely, searching for any sign of guilt, any crack in her carefully constructed facade. One evening, as I was monitoring the security feeds, I noticed Amelia entering one of the soundproof chambers I had discovered earlier. My heart pounded in my chest as I watched her through the hidden camera, her face illuminated by the dim light of her phone. She was speaking in hushed tones, her words indistinguishable, but her expression was one of intense concentration, her eyes darting nervously around the room. Who was she talking to? What secrets was she sharing within those soundproof walls? The questions gnawed at me, fueling my determination to expose the truth. The zenith had become an echo chamber, amplifying my suspicions, reflecting my own anxieties back at me. I was trapped in a feedback loop of paranoia, and I knew that the only way to break free was to confront the source of my torment. The weight of suspicion and the constant pressure of my clandestine investigation were pushing me to the breaking point. I knew I couldn't keep up this charade any longer. I needed answers, and I needed them now. One evening, I confronted Amelia. We were in our apartment, the luxurious penthouse suite that crowned the zenith, a space that was supposed to be our sanctuary, our escape from the world. But even here, the shadow of suspicion loomed large. Amelia, I began, my voice trembling with suppressed emotion. We need to talk. She looked up from her book, her expression a mixture of surprise and apprehension. Of course, darling. What is it? I hesitated, unsure how to broach the subject that had been consuming me for weeks. It's about the zenith, I finally said, about the sabotage, the secrets. Her eyes widened, a flicker of fear crossing her face. What are you talking about? She asked, her voice a little too high. Don't play coy with me, Amelia, I said, my voice rising in anger. I know you're involved. I've seen the evidence, heard the conversations, witnessed the deception. She denied everything, of course. She accused me of paranoia, of letting my obsession with the zenith consume me. She claimed to be hurt, betrayed by my lack of trust. But I wouldn't be swayed. I presented her with the evidence I had gathered, the intercepted messages, the surveillance footage, the access logs. I laid it all out before her, a damning indictment of her betrayal. She listened in silence, her face pale, her eyes downcast. When I had finished, she finally spoke, her voice barely a whisper. You're wrong, she said. You're misinterpreting everything. I can explain, but her explanations were weak, her excuses flimsy. The more she spoke, the more convinced I became of her guilt. The image I had held of her, the loving wife, the supportive partner, was shattering before my eyes, replaced by a fractured reflection of deceit and betrayal. The confrontation ended in a stalemate. Amelia refused to confess, and I refused to believe her denials. We were locked in a battle of wills, a psychological tug-of-war that threatened to tear us apart. The zenith, our shared dream, had become a battleground, and our love, the ultimate casualty. The confrontation with Amelia left me reeling, the chasm between us wider than ever. Yet I couldn't give up. I had invested too much, sacrificed too much, to let the truth remain buried beneath layers of deception. Driven by a relentless need for closure, I doubled down on my investigation. I spent countless hours analyzing data, piecing together fragments of information, following digital trails that led me deeper into the heart of the conspiracy. And then, finally, the breakthrough came. I discovered a hidden server, tucked away in a forgotten corner of the Zenith's basement. It was a treasure trove of information, a digital archive of emails, financial records, and encrypted messages that exposed the full extent of Amelia's betrayal. The truth was more devastating than I could have imagined. Amelia, driven by ambition and a thirst for power, had been systematically undermining my work, manipulating my colleagues, and siphoning funds from the Zenith to finance her own clandestine ventures. She had been playing a long game, patiently weaving a web of deceit, waiting for the opportune moment to seize control. The revelation hit me like a physical blow. The woman I had loved, the woman I had trusted with my life, had been using me, manipulating me, betraying me in the most profound way imaginable. The pain was unbearable, a searing agony that ripped through my soul. But amidst the anguish, there was also a sense of resolve. I would not let her get away with it. I would expose her treachery, unveil her true nature to the world. I meticulously compiled the evidence, creating a dossier that detailed Amelia's every move, every lie, every act of betrayal. I contacted journalists, whistleblowers, and regulatory authorities, feeding them information, fueling the flames of scandal. And then I waited for the inevitable fallout, the public reckoning that would expose Amelia's true colors and bring her carefully constructed empire crashing down. The Zenith, my architectural masterpiece, was about to serve a new purpose. It was no longer just a symbol of innovation and sustainability. It was to become an instrument of justice, a stage for Amelia's reckoning. I had spent weeks preparing for this moment, meticulously crafting a plan that would expose her treachery and force her to confront the consequences of her actions. I had utilized the building's advanced technology, its intricate systems, and its hidden spaces to create a psychological labyrinth, a carefully orchestrated experience designed to break down Amelia's defenses and reveal her true nature. I lured her to the heart of the Zenith, a hidden chamber deep within the building's core, a space that had remained untouched since its construction. It was a blank canvas, a technological playground where I could manipulate light, sound, and even temperature to create a disorienting and unsettling environment. Using holographic projectors and advanced sound systems, I recreated scenes from Amelia's past, moments of betrayal and deceit that she had long buried. I projected images of her secret meetings, her clandestine conversations, her illicit financial transactions. I played recordings of her whispered lies, her manipulative promises, her cold-hearted calculations. The chamber became a theater of the absurd, a distorted reflection of Amelia's own twisted reality. The walls seemed to close in on her, the floor shifting beneath her feet, the air thick with the weight of her own deception. As she moved through the labyrinth, her composure began to crumble. The carefully constructed facade she had maintained for so long started to crack, revealing the fear and insecurity that lay beneath. Her eyes darted nervously around the room, her breath coming in ragged gasps, her hands trembling uncontrollably. I watched her from the shadows, my heart pounding with a mixture of anger and satisfaction. This was the moment I had been waiting for, the moment of truth that would finally expose Amelia's treachery and bring her to justice. The labyrinth's core was more than just a physical space. It was a psychological battleground, a crucible where Amelia's carefully constructed reality was being systematically dismantled. As she moved deeper into the chamber, the holographic projections became more intense, the sound effects more jarring, the temperature fluctuations more extreme. I bombarded her with evidence of her betrayal, forcing her to relive every lie, every manipulation, every act of treachery. She tried to deny it all, of course, to maintain the facade of innocence she had so carefully cultivated. But the evidence was overwhelming, the illusions too powerful to resist. Her voice faltered, her eyes darted nervously, her body trembled with suppressed panic. I stepped out from the shadows, my presence adding to her growing sense of unease. "It's over, Amelia," I said, my voice cold and hard. "The game is up." She turned to face me, her eyes wide with fear and desperation. "Elias, please," she pleaded, "you don't understand." "I understand perfectly," I interrupted, my voice dripping with contempt. "I understand that you've been lying to me, using me, betraying me for years." I confronted her with the evidence I had gathered, the incriminating emails, the secret bank accounts, the damning testimonies from her own colleagues. I laid bare her motives, her ambitions, her ruthless pursuit of power and wealth. She tried to defend herself, to offer excuses, to shift the blame. But her words were hollow, her arguments weak. The truth was undeniable, the evidence irrefutable. As the confrontation reached its climax, Amelia's carefully constructed facade finally crumbled. The mask of innocence she had worn for so long slipped away, revealing the cold, calculating manipulator beneath. Her eyes hardened. Her voice took on a steely edge. Her demeanor shifted from pleading to defiant. "So what if I did it?" she spat, her voice laced with venom. "You were too weak, too naive to see what was happening. You deserved to be used." Her words stung, but they also confirmed what I had long suspected. Amelia was not the woman I thought I knew. She was a stranger, a ruthless opportunist who had used my love and trust to further her own ambitions. The confrontation in the labyrinth's core was a turning point, a moment of clarity that shattered the last vestiges of my illusions. I finally saw Amelia for who she truly was, and the realization was both liberating and devastating. The air within the labyrinth's core crackled with tension. Amelia, stripped bare of her pretenses, stood before me, her defiance a fragile shield against the onslaught of truth. The holographic projections continued to swirl around us, a chaotic symphony of light and sound that mirrored the turmoil within her. I pressed my advantage, relentlessly exposing her lies, her manipulations, her betrayals. I showed her the damage she had caused, the pain she had inflicted, the trust she had shattered. I forced her to confront the consequences of her actions, the wreckage of her own making. The weight of her deception became unbearable, the illusions she had so carefully constructed crumbling around her like a house of cards. Her defiance wavered, her eyes flickered with doubt, her voice trembled with suppressed emotion. The carefully crafted persona she had presented to the world, the loving wife, the supportive partner, the successful businesswoman, dissolved into a maelstrom of fear, insecurity, and regret. The mask had fallen, revealing the true face of Amelia, a woman driven by ambition, consumed by greed, and blinded by her own self-importance. She tried to fight back, to regain control of the narrative, but her efforts were futile. The evidence was too strong, the truth too powerful to deny. Her arguments faltered, her excuses withered, her lies evaporated into the thin air of the labyrinth. As the illusions shattered, Amelia's carefully constructed world collapsed around her. The foundation of deceit upon which she had built her life crumbled, leaving her exposed and vulnerable. The woman who had once seemed so confident, so in control, now stood before me, broken and defeated. The transformation was both shocking and cathartic. I had finally seen the true Amelia, the woman behind the mask, and the revelation was both liberating and heartbreaking. The love I had felt for her, the trust one had placed in her, had been misplaced, wasted on a phantom, an illusion. But amidst the pain and disappointment, there was also a sense of closure. The truth had been revealed, the deception exposed, the illusions shattered. And in their place, a new reality emerged, a reality where Amelia's treachery was laid bare, her power stripped away, her carefully constructed world reduced to rubble. The labyrinth's core, with its shattered illusions and exposed truths, became Amelia's prison. But unlike the cold steel and concrete of a traditional cell, her confinement was within the walls of her own conscience. I had no desire to inflict physical harm, to seek revenge in the traditional sense. My aim was far more profound, far more devastating. I chose to expose her, to strip her of the one thing she valued most, her reputation. I released the dossier I had compiled, the meticulously documented evidence of her betrayal, to the public. I shared it with the media, with industry rivals, with the very colleagues she had manipulated and used. The fallout was swift and merciless. The news of Amelia's treachery spread like wildfire, her carefully cultivated image of success and integrity tarnished beyond repair. Her business partners abandoned her. Her clients withdrew their support. Her friends turned their backs. She became a pariah, an outcast, shunned by the very society she had so desperately sought to conquer. The public humiliation was only the beginning. Legal challenges followed, investigations launched into her fraudulent activities, lawsuits filed by those she had wronged. Amelia, once a rising star in the world of architecture, found herself facing financial ruin, her career in tatters, her reputation irrevocably damaged. But the most devastating consequence of all was the loss of trust. The people she had manipulated, the friends she had betrayed, the husband she had deceived, they all saw her now for who she truly was. The bonds of loyalty and affection that had once held her life together were severed, leaving her isolated and alone. The reckoning was complete. Amelia, stripped of her power, her reputation, and her relationships, was left to face the consequences of her actions. The zenith, once a symbol of her ambition and deceit, now stood as a monument to her downfall, a constant reminder of the price she had paid for her treachery. The reckoning had shattered Amelia's carefully constructed facade, leaving her exposed and vulnerable. But the pain and humiliation were not enough. There was still a lingering sense of emptiness, a void that had been left by the loss of her love, her trust, her very identity. Elias, too, was left reeling. The woman he had loved, the woman he had believed in, had turned out to be a monster. The trust he had placed in her had been shattered. The love he had felt for her had been extinguished. The zenith, once a symbol of their shared dreams, now stood as a monument to their shattered relationship. It was a reminder of the past, a haunting reminder of the love that had been lost, the trust that had been betrayed, the dreams that had been shattered. But amidst the pain and the emptiness, there was also a sense of relief. The truth had been exposed, the deception laid bare. The weight of suspicion and doubt that had been hanging over him for so long had finally been lifted. Elias found solace in the solitude of the zenith, its towering structure a silent witness to the trials he had endured. He spent hours wandering its halls, its empty spaces echoing with the memories of his past, the ghosts of his lost love. But as time passed, the pain began to fade, the emptiness began to fill. He found solace in the solitude, the silence, the opportunity to reflect on his life, to rediscover himself. The zenith, once a symbol of his love and his dreams, became a sanctuary, a place of healing and renewal. It was a reminder of the resilience of the human spirit, the ability to rise above even the most devastating losses. Elias emerged from the labyrinth of his past a changed man, a man who had faced his demons, confronted his fears, and emerged stronger for the experience. The zenith, once a symbol of his shattered dreams, had become a symbol of his resilience, a testament to the power of the human spirit to overcome even the most insurmountable obstacles. As he stood in the heart of the zenith, gazing out at the city skyline, he felt a sense of peace, a sense of closure. The past was behind him, the future lay before him, full of possibilities. He was no longer the man he had been, but he was stronger, wiser, more resilient. He was a survivor, a conqueror, a man who had emerged from the labyrinth of his past, reborn.